Welcome, everybody, to the Creature Cast, the official Console Creatures podcast. My name is David Petrangelo, and I am one of your hosts and podcasters for this adventure of all things video games. This week, at least for now, Bobby might be showing his face and his voice in a little bit, but life happens. But for now, this week, I'm joined by Steve Vigvari. How are you, man? How are you this week?
I'm doing really good. How about you?
Yeah, holding up. Didn't
Nice.
play as many games as I wanted to over the last week, but
Okay.
but still got some stuff in, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Nice.
So, on top of that, we have a little bit of I think it's the first time for the show, we have a tail end extra segment. I spoke to Esport Canada, which is a Canadian-based not-for-profit that pushes forth the community of esports through education and different initiatives, and uses a lot of education to sort of back what they do to sort of have the community and have the ecosystem of esports grow in younger generations more than anything. Anywhere from young kids that are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old that are just starting to game up to post-secondary, which is great. And I spoke to them about the news that the Olympics now has a competition week for esports coming up in June. And I saw that news and I go, hey, we got to say something about this. We got to talk to somebody about this. Yeah.
Right.
So I got a hold of them. I talked to one of their members. I talked to Melissa Burns about it, and you can hear that interview in full at the end of this episode, probably within the next half hour or so. You might I'm going to timestamp it and everything so you can find it there. And also we have a video version of it as well up on our YouTube page for Console Creatures as well. So you can also watch it and unfortunately look at my face even more than you might already do. So yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It was fun to do. Melissa was great to talk to. We talked about a bunch of stuff that ranges from that news itself to what Esport Canada is, and then talk a bit about the games that we love and the games that we play. She's a very big esport player and that in MOBAs and things like that. So it was kind of cool to kind of run through a little bit of game talk as well, which was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I
mean, I've yet to listen to the interview, but I'm definitely going to check that out because it's a really cool thing to hear that the Olympics are actually trying to, go in. Because I saw the news, not to go on like a huge diatribe of it.
No, let's talk about it. Yeah.
You see it and everything. And like, for me, someone who has been invested with esports, like that's how I got into writing about games and everything was on the esports side. So seeing that, I was like, okay, this is a really big moment. And then you kind of go through the list and you're like, I see this as like, I won't go as far as to say like it's a half measure, but like you can see it as like phase one where it is,
yes,
you have Just Dance and Gran Turismo. And those are the two like marquee quote unquote esports.
Those are the AAA titles that are more recognizable to the average gamer, I would say.
Right. But then on the other side, like you just have like generic other games that people who aren't into the gaming side can kind of understand and everything. So it is kind of like, for me, that adaptive step of, okay, maybe next year they can integrate something like a Rocket League, which
is something that came up when we were talking, is that Rocket League is something, or our fighting game. We talked about Tekken a little bit, like those games, and Street Fighter's coming out soon. Like all these games are Smash. All these games are huge. When you think of esports, that's generally what you think of. So I think it is a little bit surprising. I can see how people are like, wait a second, this isn't esports, but they're using this, I think, like you mentioned, it's like a building block a little bit. I think that's part of what it is, and that's okay. I agree. I don't think that a lot of these games are like the ones you would think of, but that doesn't mean that they're not worthy and that people shouldn't have availability to have like high skill level and competition with,
of course,
right? So
it's also like that tricky middle ground where we are dealing with the video game medium, which by and large does deal with like a lot of esports titles that have violence, and no shot in hell is the Olympics ever going to show like CS:GO or Mortal Kombat with fatalities. Like that's just
or
Call
of Duty. Like it's probably not going to happen. Yeah,
exactly. So
which in that light is actually the most interesting one, I thought, to me, is the cycling one, which is sort of like a platform, I guess, for digital cycling already, called Zwift, which is like you're on a stationary bike that looks similar to like a Peloton type of thing, and you're hooked up to a system and you're riding real tracks in the real world, similar to what you might do in some racing games, but it's on a
Sure.
bike, it's on a
Yeah.
stationary bike. I think that's a great idea. I think that is, when you see like the mix of like traditional sports of what the Olympics would typically have and mixed in video games, that is exactly what I would think it would be, because
Right.
you don't have to have, the Tour de France to be in the Olympics. You don't have to be that person. You can do it from the, comfort of your own home, or whatever the terminology would be. That I think is a cool idea, but maybe they'll get to League and things like that. Maybe they'll get to some other, Rocket League, I think, is a perfect example. Like you mentioned, I think that's something that people would really like, because it's fun. It's really accessible. It's a huge market. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say like, oh, they should have had this for sure, but at least they're starting.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's kind of a cool thing. So
absolutely. So yeah, everyone that's listening, go check out the interview at the end of the show, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cool discussions and information.
Yeah, and it's not even just about the news. Like, we talk a lot about the importance of what esports are for a younger generation, and just like how esports, and I mentioned even during the interview too, it's just like growing up and playing sports as a team, being in extracurriculars and during school and everything. Like, that's how I developed a lot of like life skills that I didn't know I was developing at the time, and that's how I have my oldest friends, is from doing stuff like that, and esports provides that opportunity for people that may not have had it previously. And that's great. And that's an awesome thing. It brings people together too. So yeah, that's all part of the discussion. You can see the timestamp on the podcast. And until that time, Steve, we're going to talk about games that we have been playing. I have been talking long enough. Let's talk about a couple things that you've been hacking away at. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Wolong, Fallen Dynasty.
Sure, tell me how that's going, because I started and then I didn't keep going. So
right. And the funny thing about that is I have been in that exact spot, I think, twice now with the game. I love Souls games, Souls liked. This game comes from Team Ninja, who made Neo 2. Those other games that don't fall into like the From Software category, but are similar enough that you can kind of gain a grasp of it and everything.
High challenge too, like that's almost a given. Like for me, Team Ninja always, like, just because it goes back to the days that I first recognized them from, is the Ninja Gaiden games.
Of course,
I love all of those games. They're great.
Right.
Especially when they started coming out for Xbox and everything. That's
course.
That's where I have most experiences with those ones. So
yeah. And then they slowly start to adapt more of like the Souls like kind of grind and fierce combat and stuff like that. And Wolong kind of fits into the camp of kind of both the Team Ninja side and as well as the From Software side, where it does kind of feel like this middle ground between Neo and Sekiro. Where it is very much a timing-based game where you do have to really hit your parries, hit your dodges and everything. It's not just brute force enemies like you would in maybe a Dark Souls. But yeah, I really it's such an interesting game, because I got into it during the beta. They've been doing like a whole bunch of betas leading up to the initial launch, and I jumped into the beta. I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting the hang of it. It is a very rhythmic game. You like I said, you have to nail those timings of deflect the enemy's attack and then
dodge, parry, all that
exactly
stuff.
It is very rhythmic in that way. I was like, okay, I kind of get it. Jumped off of it, went to a whole bunch of different games, and then the game finally released in large, and it carries over all your progress, right? So nice. Which is very cool. I really like that. My character came over, the half hour I put into the beta carried over and everything. It just so happened that where I stopped playing in the beta was 5 steps away from that first boss. so getting back into it, I spent it came out on the Friday that just passed as the time we're recording, and I think I spent until the Sunday trying to get through that boss, where I was like, I have to relearn the timing, I have to relearn the controller settings and everything. And then finally, like a lot of these Souls games, the first boss is always the one that kind of puts you in your place, so to speak. Like I do feel like I'm very proficient in these games. I can work my way around it, but it always does come down to the same thing with Sekiro, where the game tells you, no, you're going to play the way we want you to play the game. You're not going to be able to just, finagle your way. You're not going to be able to push your way through this boss or anything. And that's exactly what it was with that first boss, which I think a lot of people are in the same camp where they're like, this guy is one of the hardest to beat, like, I think by design.
Yeah, I think, okay, so that's when you said what the game is going to put you in its place, or the boss is going to put you in its place, that's what it did. It put me in the place of not playing it anymore. That's
sure.
The place and not because I don't know. It is a design choice. It must be, right? It's not.
It is
like, hey, this guy just has a huge health bar and it just takes forever and it's going to whittle you down and you're going to whittle it down. Whoever survives the small hits. It is very much B, hit your parries, hit your dodges, whatever. And I don't find that rewarding at all. That's the problem. I think if I do get back to it, and I'm going to leave it installed, I might, it's going to be hard to sort of like pick up the rhythm of things like after putting it down. So I'm a little worried that I may have already missed that or may have to start again. And that's fine. I'm only, like you said, 20 minutes, half an hour in. Not a huge bother if I were to start from the beginning, but I don't find in the middle of beating my head against the wall of trying to beat this guy, I don't find the consistent same action or very similar action over and over and over again to be fun. I just find it to be like, okay, I dodged this guy, let's say 7 or 8 times in a row, did a perfect parry. I know I did because I didn't get hit. I know I did because I can see the sort of progress bar or the stamina, whatever bar.
Essentially.
I love that mechanic, by the way. I think it's great. I think it's a really cool mechanic. I love how that works and how it carries over as you progress, and it, the number builds at the bottom. I can't remember the name of it. I love the way that works. That's awesome. But if I've done enough to realistically block a bunch of stuff, like I should be able to get a shot in. I don't understand why there's not even like an opportunity, and I need to hit B once or twice every 6 seconds for 15 minutes in order to get the guy halfway through his first stage. It doesn't, that doesn't work for me.
I'm right there with you. And it is kind of like this weird thing where that first boss does exactly that, where it feels like you're doing chip damage with your basic attacks and everything. It feels like, okay, we're just, doing little increments. And then of course he starts hitting you with his own attacks, so you deflect, and then he does his like, I don't know, whatever, like
red. That's
the variable attack, like brings down his stamina bar. Same kind of thing with Sekiro, and it's that thing where you are just hitting B repeatedly over and over and over again, but it's this weird thing where that boss is like in a bubble of its own, and then you break free, you go through like. At this point, like I think like 5 or 6 other missions after that, and it feels great. I fell in love with this game. I was like, man, like
I want that. Why are they hiding that behind such a big wall? That's what
I have no idea. And for this entire week I was going through and I was like, man, I'm loving this. I'm loving the other boss battles, and I feel like I'm making good progress. Until today, where I feel like I faced another boss that was exactly that.
Okay.
Where it really stamped it into my head. I was like, I'm just pressing B to just deflect, to parry. I'm not even doing anything with like my regular attacks. I have this companion here that's just getting in the way every time. Like she's out here getting killed, and then like on the battlefield, she's like, "Oh, help me!" And then like, you have to go like.
Because in that first one, you don't have to do that.
No, because he essentially like he does his thing, and then he's good. In this one, within 2-3 minutes, she's out, and then you have to just like babysit her the entire time. And I swear, there's no exaggeration, 5 or 6 times in a row, every time I tried to go and aid her, the boss would just kill me in one shot. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to worry about this companion because it's not even helping me at this point.
Okay.
But today was almost the breaking point where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play this game anymore, only because this boss is just really frustratingly annoying, and brutal. I just don't feel like I love the combat. The core combat I feel
It's cool.
is super good.
Yeah.
The story is nonsensical. I don't really care about any of it. The voice acting's not really that good.
No.
And I'll be honest, the graphics don't really impress me.
Yeah,
But
I think the designs are good, but I don't think that it looks, current gen.
exactly. So it becomes this whole thing where I'm having this internal argument where I'm being frustrated, like very frustrated with like certain bosses, certain encounters and stuff like that. I'm like, is there enough outside of just the core gameplay here that I'm just gonna push through all this? Because like I don't know, because we're coming in like a very busy month, and I'm like, I really would like to stick with this game because I do feel like there's something special here because I love the genre. I love the style of it. The gameplay is really good, but it's just getting in these frustrating moments where I'm facing the same boss for 3 hours, just pressing B, B, B.
No,
and I'm like,
I'm not doing that. Yeah.
no. So yeah. Wolong is a good game. There are good moments, great aspects to this game, but I feel like there are just design elements here that just don't work for me. As someone who
and that's the
loves
thing.
these
I can
games.
even tell. I've seen from people's reviews. I've seen from other people's just general impressions online. Hearing what you're saying, like there's stuff there. It's that wall that just has beat the hell out of me. Like, I don't understand that choice. Like, the systems are there and they work. Why not allow me to play within those, as opposed to stopping me from enjoying what led up to that boss and what sounds like led up to the next one. Whatever. It's just us, maybe I just suck at video games too. I don't know what it is. It's
You
probably a
gotta
little bit of that
good.
too.
That's it.
Good.
Yeah.
Get good. That's all I'm coming here for today, is telling you to get good.
Try sucking less, man.
Yeah. Have you tried not being bad at video games?
Yeah.
I haven't. I think I've always been that way.
Do better, because if you're not good at a Souls game, then what's the point of playing video games?
No, I'm hitting in my gamer badge.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our minimal experience with Wolong. Let's at least mine is pretty minimal. Bobby, we're gonna hear from Steve a little bit more. I want to hear about this Resident Evil 4 chainsaw demo.
Hell yeah.
Are you a sentient chainsaw? What's the deal here?
I wish. That'd be a really cool twist. No, I guess it was kind of advantageous that we ended up, recording a day later than we usually do, because Capcom held its, the Capcom Spotlight Day or whatever, or Nintendo Direct little thing
Nintendo
today.
Direct Capcom.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. And during it, they released the Resident Evil 4 demo a couple weeks ahead of its actual launch across PlayStation 5, 4, Xbox Series X and S, and then Steam as well. So anyone out there listening that may have not known, you can go install it now. It's available. The really cool thing about it is that there's no time limit on it, so you could theoretically just play as much as you want, or just exist in this little, small little vertical slice of the game for as long as you want. Really, it's neat. I played through it before we started recording this. I installed it, played it. It took me about 20-25 minutes, and that was me just soaking it all in. I think that you could theoretically run it 10-15. It is very quick. Like it starts out, you get like the brief intro sequence of, this is what happened with Leon in previous Resident Evil games, and then you kind of just get thrown right into it, where you're approaching the Hunter's Lodge. You go in, you do the thing, you encounter your first infected, and you end up in the Spanish village, and the chainsaw man comes out with the burlap sack on his face and everything, and you're just kind of in this kind of like horde mode-esque thing where you can go through some of the houses, pick up items, survive, and then it kind of just ends. I don't want to give too much away because I know, Dave, you're installing it as we speak to go through it. So I don't want to give away like all the cool little things, but I will say, like, anyone coming off of Resident Evil 2 or 3 remakes, the quality's here. You can just see it by the lighting, the way the game handles. It's so fun because I've played Resident Evil 4 way back when, and I distinctly remember how stiff it felt coming here and just being able to, swing the camera, aim, and like do all these like relatively like quick motions and everything. I'm like, man, Leon's got Leon's got moves now. I really love this glow up for our guy. Good for him. But it really does fundamentally change the game, where you just don't feel like you're a tree with like your roots in the ground.
Yeah.
You can actually move around and feel more dynamic that way. So I feel like this game, just based off 20 minutes of a small slice of this game, I'm really excited for it. I can't wait to actually sink my teeth into the full experience and see what else this game has to offer.
Nice. Yeah, I got to. I definitely played this game, but I only remember moments of it because it's been so long. So this is like a perfect opportunity, and that was largely the same thing for RE2 until I replayed the remake and loved it. I haven't played the third one, but the second one was great. I played that. Then I also played the old one for N64 last year for some crazy reason, and it was interesting. It actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it was very. Like you said, you do feel like you have tree trunks and you have to just work with that every couple steps you take. But I'm excited to play this because and try this because especially the demo. I just want to see how it looks. I want to see how it feels. And it's probably going to convince me that I'm going to have to get this game.
Right. Yeah. And just shout out to Capcom for always doing this for Resident Evil. I always feel like it becomes an event kind of thing. Just right before the game comes out, you get these little bite-sized little portions of the game to go through, dating all the way back to Resident Evil 7 when they did the kitchen demo. Right. I love that stuff. I love that they just give you like this nice little bite-sized portion of the game right before launch, just to kind of build some hype, get everyone integrated with like the game. And honestly, just from like an accessibility standpoint, allow people to jump in and see if the game works for them or if it even jives with them. So I really like that. More studios should do that.
Yeah, no, it's a very nice
also
approach.
Should do. Release the chainsaw controller that Resident Evil 4 had. Because like, what the hell's going on here?
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. What the hell, Capcom? Listen. I only wanted the controller.
Bobby. Now we're just regular guys here, right? Jim Ryan's not going to be here listening to us out of all the people out here. But I'm saying this right now: if PlayStation does not release a DualSense chainsaw controller for Resident Evil 4 VR, big mistake, Jim.
Big mistake.
Come on, Jim.
Big fucking mistake, Jim.
This is why Activision is in your mind right now, Jim. Because you're not listening to you, people.
Jimbo.
Don't
big
be that
mistake.
guy, Jim.
Jim, you're better than this.
Release the controller, Jim. That's all we want is a Resident Evil chainsaw.
But could you imagine that for DualSense? Like that, like a peripheral for that? That come on, Jim.
I haven't even played VR2, and I think that'd be crazy. It'd be awesome. So cool.
Anything with a chainsaw would be pretty cool in VR. Sure. So like, make it happen. Someone, whoever's listening, make a game.
There's got to.
We'll support you.
Yeah, I mean something so distinct and so different like that. There's got to be other people that have thought of it. They just need to, take that next step. They just need.
I think I'm the first.
Oh, you're the first. Oh, okay.
Seriously,
what the hell do I know?
Give me credit.
What do I know? I don't even have a VR2. What do I know?
No, I'm the first, and I'm calling you out, Jim.
There we go. All right, Jim,
do the right thing.
Bobby, anything on the playlist that you want to talk about?
I can't talk about it because
can't talk about it. Okay, so I will then talk about.
I can't, but I can do this. I can do this.
Oh,
he's got it. He's got it.
Ooh, look at that snazzy thing. For anyone that's just listening to the audio, he is holding up a Switch, and we also have a nice set of controllers on the side. Is that a GameCube themed?
The Nixie Wizard.
Ooh.
It is pretty cool. It's
how's
like having a
feel?
In 20. I love it so far. I mean, I have no complaints.
Yeah.
It's pretty sturdy. I've seen some mixed reactions online, but I mean, I like it. I mean, it's a lot better than the Joy-Cons, and it's got the Hall effect sensors. So, I mean, that's already a win in my book.
Nice.
Which means drift is not going to happen.
Nice. How heavy are they?
They're very light.
Oh, really?
Like,
are they supposed to be heavy? Like, is that the expectation? I don't like.
No, it's pretty light. I mean, like it's about as light as the Joy-Cons, I'd say. Even maybe just a little bit heavier, but it's got pretty much everything included except for Amiibo support. But rarely I don't use those, so. Everything else it
Does
perfectly
anyone use
one to one.
them? I don't know if anyone does
Oh yeah, Flash
anymore.
players do for sure.
I have
Flash players.
I have one sitting here, but it's just because I like the way it looks.
I have so many of
I
them.
got the same one.
Yeah, I've got like 12, and I've never opened them. They're just sitting in. Their
Ooh, never
containers.
opened them. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the 8-bit Mario, like Japanese variant.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I
need
have
that
it still
one.
in the box. It's up here on
I
my
don't know
shelf.
if I'm never going to use them. I really just might as well just keep them in the box and put them on a shelf because they look really nice.
Yeah,
That's
they
true.
do.
I
I'll
do like
collect
their
them as, like-
styles. I have always liked the way that like their designs and everything are always very
I
well
jumped
done.
in too late, but yeah, whatever. I'm starting to build a collection now. So
Nice.
far, I have everything I want. I just need Cloud and Sora, and I think that's it. Everything else I've gotten that I pretty much wanted. I'm waiting for the new Link that's coming out.
That one looks
yeah.
cool. That one looks cool. Yeah. All the
Yeah.
Zelda ones have been pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Again, the designs are nice. So those controllers feel pretty good. I guess is the right joystick, does it have the same odd I guess face or shape that the C buttons did on the GameCube, or is it like an actual joystick?
No, here, hold on.
Yeah, it's an actual. No, the one on the
see it?
right. No, the yellow, the C buttons.
Oh, sorry.
That's an actual joystick. Okay.
Yeah, that's more joysticky.
Okay, it's a real joystick. It's not a funky square feeling.
It takes some adjusting, but like it's so much better than the Joy-Con because like legitimately.
Well, it looks like a nice, more comfortable size around your hands. I mean, that's really the big thing.
Yeah,
because larger hands and longer play sessions do not work handheld. I just can't do it anymore.
I know.
I think I did
After
it
the Steam
first,
Deck,
but I can't do it.
The Steam Deck spoiled me because that thing is just perfect. It just
That too.
I can't complain, but like I love it so far. But
Nice.
I haven't used it much because I'm playing something else that's coming out in a couple weeks, so I have to finish that. I just started it, so
all right. Excited to hear about it, sir. Okay, speaking of older games, I'm going to mention this really quickly. I played a series of Nintendo 64 games over the last couple of weeks.
Oh.
This is for another podcast that I do. It's called Remember 64, where I just play N64 games and talk to people about it. Why I did that to myself, I don't know, but it is still fun at the same time. And I am on a pretty cold streak right now. I played Glover, Mortal Kombat 4. I was like, yeah. And the first South Park game. Those are the three games I played.
Hell yes. You're saying that you're in a cold spot right now? I think you got 2 bangers in there.
I highly
Glover
disagree.
64 is pretty good.
I highly disagree. All 3 games are not good games.
No, you know what's not a good game is I think what was it? Quest 64. That's a bad game.
I want to try that. I've never played that. But these 3 games. So Glover is a platformer. You're basically Mario's glove. You can walk around and jump around, and then you have a ball that you can bounce. You can turn it into a bowling ball. You can turn it into like a little pinball. All these, the ideas are good. The execution is horrible. The controls are ridiculous.
Do you make a new game? I
It's
swear there's a new Glover.
Well, they re-released it on Steam, and apparently it's
Steam,
like
yeah.
it's just like a port, and it's not. It just looks a little shinier, and that's it. It doesn't control well, at least not on the 64. I would say don't frustrate yourself. It was a rough few hours. Mortal Kombat 4. I don't really remember playing 4 too much growing up. I played it on this, and it's just a clunkier version of the 2D games, and you might as well just play 1, 2, or 3. They're just better, or Trilogy. They're just better games. Just straight up 2D, it just works better. And then South Park it's just same with Glover. The ideas I understand, but the controls are just ridiculous.
Oh, so ridiculous.
So
even at the time, I remember just being like, "This is so archaic."
Now the
nonsensical.
The 64 controller is not great for FPS games, no matter how you look at it. It's just not. And to compare it to nowadays, it's just it's an unfair comparison. But the problem is with South Park is that I was trying to figure out, like, why is it so hard to get my aim down? Why is it so hard for me to just not just hold on to the Z button constantly, to just constantly fire every time there's enemies around? Is because every time you look up or down to aim at something, the joystick or the camera wants to automatically bring itself back to center. So if you look up,
Oh,
you don't have to touch the joystick and it goes back to center. So if something's bigger than you or above you or below you, you're constantly pressing down or pressing up and fighting against the game itself. And that is fundamentally a stupid, stupid idea, because you cannot do anything productively and you have limited ammo of the fun weapons that are there.
oh my God, so much fun.
Yeah, they're fun. There's one that's like a dart gun and it kind of winds up and it's just like Nerf bullets firing out. It's sort of like an SMG style is sort of the idea. And then you have an infinite amount of snowballs you can constantly throw. Fine, cool, right? But just the level design is lazy and shitty. It's just an excuse. It's just an excuse to have South Park
That's exactly what it was. Yep.
During the second or third season that the show was on. That's
super early.
All it is. Yeah.
And super early characters, the settings and everything. You can tell like it's early days South Park that they just jumped on it.
Yeah. It's the issue with it as well is because it's super early South Park, there's a lot of jokes and some characters that really are insanely inappropriate and not fun to be with and talk to and fight. And I was like, I got to find a way to get past. I'm not even going to say which one it was because it's just not even worth it. It's just not a good representation of people. It is definitely 25 years ago humor and doesn't work. It's not the whole game, but there is a section of the game that if you have the cheat codes, you want to play this game, just skip over it. It's not worth it. Characters, the fact that they got like, all the voices are in it. Everyone's fully voice acted. The character designs aren't bad. You don't have to try too hard to bring South Park into 3D, I guess. You just sort of make some squares around the characters and you're like, okay, now you have a round version of Kyle and Kenny, and that's fine. But I had to put in the cheat codes. I looked them up and I skipped a couple levels because I'm like, I just got to get to the end of this. And that's so
sure.
Glover, MK4, and South Park, or at least the first one, I haven't played the other ones, are sadly avoidable games for the N64, in my opinion. But thankfully, this is next on the docket. It is Donkey Kong 64.
Oh yeah.
Coming up next. I have my cartridge, I have my expansion pack, and I am ready to play that. I'm going to play it single player. I don't have anyone the wife probably won't have time to play it or anything, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to do an episode on that of Remember 64, and I'm going to play it. And it's been so long, and this is by far my least played Donkey Kong game, even though I grew up having a 64 in my house. I never owned this game, and I'm excited to try it out. And I know it has mixed reviews and mixed feelings, but Donkey Kong 64 is going to be next.
Those people are wrong. That's a good game.
Well, you said there was two bangers, and I'm sorry, but the two bangers that you thought they were trash, in my opinion.
I mean, they're pretty good for what the N64 had. You know what? You're talking about cold spells. Tell me when you get to Body Harvest.
Ooh,
there's going to be like 5 people out there that are like, oh yeah, I remember that game.
That is on the list.
That
Actually,
I will. Familiar.
Yeah, it's a cool looking game. I'm interested. I never played it. That's the other thing about the 64 and why I decided to do this other podcast is because
Body Harvest.
So many people have experience with it, but mostly Mario Kart, Smash,
right.
Mario Party, Zelda. That's what I have experience with, and and Banjo-Kazooie, which is sitting behind me. Like those games, but 80% of the people that had the system played all those games. Yeah. So I wanted to play a bunch of stuff that I never played before, and see if any of it's any good.
The funny thing is that I think, you're totally right that everyone kind of, has those umbrella games where it's the Mario Kart, the Smash, everything like that. But then everyone has the one or two games that no one's ever heard of. For me, it was Body Harvest, and the other one was Nightmare Creatures.
Yes,
1 and 2.
I've played that. I haven't played the second one. I played the first one. I haven't done an episode on it yet for the podcast, but I played it because I was like, what is this? I recognize this cover. It's not bad, man. It's not bad.
I remember it being really good back in the day. I haven't played it since. I don't even know if I still have my cartridge, but anyone I've ever talked to about that, they're like, maybe I've seen the cover somewhere, like maybe I like Blockbuster or something, but I never played it. And those two games, Body Harvest and Nightmare Creatures, were always the ones that people were like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
just you made those up. You made those up. One of them for me is called BioFreaks, which is like a fighting game. And it's all these like crazy characters. Like there's one guy that has a chainsaw for an arm. Speaking of chainsaws, there's characters that have like guns on their back and like all these different weird creatures. And it's a 3D fighting game. It's not great, but at the time it was cool because you could chop people's arms off and all that kind of stuff. So at the time it was like, oh my God, it's a gory game. Like literally in the middle of a fight, you could do a certain move and you could chop someone's arm off. And now they have one less weapon to fight you with for the rest of the fight.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Cool idea. There's verticality to it too. You have like jetpacks and stuff. The execution's not great. I replayed it sometime last year and I was like, oh, this is super clunky, but that's what you get with the console. So anyways, that's my adventure into older games.
They should do Clay Fighter.
Clay Fighter. Yeah. I don't think I think I played one of those. I don't remember which one, but that's my adventure into one set of retro games. And then I'm still playing Metroid Prime Remastered. I'm not all the way through it yet, but still really liking it. I've got a few more abilities. I'm able to walk and jump underwater at the moment. So that's my latest one. Samus's suit is changing colors, which is super cool, which I didn't expect. And it's a great game. It's a really fun game. So that's I'm going to keep going. I'm loving it so far. So I'm happy to report that I am happy to be playing it. Yes.
Very cool. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, actually, Bobby, we talked about it a little bit to start. What do you think about? We talked a little bit about a couple of the games. You weren't sitting in with us yet and stuff. What do you think about the news of the Olympics coming in?
I think it came out. I mean, was it something that we knew of? Okay, I feel like it just came out of nowhere, right? But
I think it kind of did, yeah.
Because I up till what was the news? I think it was last week they announced it, something like that. It was just like out of nowhere. I was like, that's cool. Like, how is this going to work? But the games look pretty cool. I mean, I'm looking at the list right now. I'm like, a Gran Turismo Olympic sport.
Yeah, that's cool.
I could do that in like 5 years when I dedicate myself the next 5 years to it.
All right. Well, we expect you to see you there in 2028.
I'll be in the sequel movie too with Orlando Bloom. But like, it's cool. It's really cool. I'm really surprised that the Olympics are doing something like this because I mean I never expected it. But I mean, from what I listened to it so far, I listened to about 2/3 of it today. I was on a quick lunch and like Melissa was like really passionate about this, so it's like I like hearing what she was saying, and you know she's definitely leading the charge on this. It looks like because she's a pioneer from what I've seen at least. But like it's cool. I really like what she's doing. I like what the Olympics are doing. It shows that they're open to change and that going forward. I mean, video games are officially recognized as an international sport. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, international stage on a stage that everyone recognizes when you say the word Olympics. Like it's not like League, Dota, those types of games that are massive. Overwatch, Rocket League, they're big games. They're worldwide competitions, but it's different with. I think it's also what Melissa in the interview. It's different when you say the word Olympics, when you attach the word Olympics to something. It's
very prestige, I think. Yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, just, well, for my background, like my heritage is Greek, so like it's a huge thing hearing the Olympics are doing something like this.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, the only thing I'm kind of curious about is like, how did they like choose these games?
The process of which games are what. Yeah. Yeah.
And like, what are potential games they could have thought of that would have been on there? Like for me, I would have liked to seen like a Wii Sports. That'd be cool. Or
something like that.
A Street Fighter. Street Fighter would be pretty cool. Or something timeless.
Yeah, a fighting game would be interesting. As long as, like I think Steve said before, as long as it's not Mortal Kombat and people aren't having their spines ripped out, I think you're okay. I think you're pretty safe.
I think that we have to draw the line on. But like Street Fighter, like
show me Mario beating Sonic's ass.
Smash Bros would be cool.
Smash Brothers would be great. Would be really. It's fun to watch. It's so flashy. Everyone can recognize a bunch of characters like at any age. Like that would be really cool. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Like there's just a lot of potential here. I think it's fantastic. My one recommendation is if any of you ever played International Track and Field on PS1, that's a game that you need to practice and play on because that is a true Olympic sport.
Yes,
right there
one.
itself.
Okay.
Look it up. I mean, it's one. I remember I have the best memories playing this game with my friends. I just remember hammering the controller on javelin and like shot put. But like, it's such a fun game. And
Like
like,
playing track and field on the NES, just AB,
oh yeah,
AB,
it
AB.
was so cool. It was crazy. But like, yeah, no, I mean, there's potential here. Like, I would like to
Yeah.
see Super Mega Baseball because I see there's like a baseball category. Like Super Mega Baseball would be cool. Where's FIFA? Like a FIFA tournament?
Yeah, stuff like
The
that. Like, I mean,
Olympics?
as long as it
There's
doesn't have
just
FIFA's name attached to it, they could probably
Well,
work it out. Yeah.
EA's football club because they're obviously switching the
Yes.
name
Yes.
going
Well,
forward. But
and
like,
that's the
that would
thing.
be cool.
Next year could be something like that, and that's great.
But
And that's
yeah, it's.
cool.
I think it's a great start. So I'm definitely gonna tune in because I mean, like I said, I'm looking at the list. It looks really cool. I'm excited for it. So let's see what happens. Let's see how popular it gets and what ends up happening.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's a perfect way to leave it. Steve, we can find you online at
Asvikvari everywhere across the
Hey,
internet.
super easy. I'm at Dave Petro. I mentioned it for the first time. I mentioned my other podcast, Remember 64. Remember 64 is out there. Just search for it at Remember 64 Show is where you can find it all across the board. I tried to be Steve. You inspired me. I tried to make all the names exactly the same, so it's easy to find. It's like I was
Internet
like,
branding.
Steve could do it. I
Internet
could
branding.
do it.
Yep. Everyone can do it.
Everyone can do it. Bobby, Console Creatures, we got some pretty good reviews up and some news and stuff. Where are they finding all our stuff for that?
You can find us consolecreatures.com, every social channel, YouTube, and we're still doing lots of PSVR reviews. I just dropped Pistol Whip.
Yeah, I read that before, man.
You guys all need to play it. It's the coolest game.
Nice.
I just finished the campaign. It drained me. I'm sore. I'm hurting, but like I'm so excited to go back just because like
Bobby got pistol whipped.
I got pistol whipped many times. Like they're actually smacking me in the face, and you can feel the haptics, and it's like,
Amazing.
oh god, okay. But yeah, we got PSVR, we got lots. We got Dead Cells Castlevania reviews. We've got Paranormal Sight, which is a cool little visual novel, and Bendy in the Dark Revival. If you like BioShock and horror, check it out.
Nice.
Kind of a little bit mix of both. And yeah, we got lots coming up.
Well, I'm just going to throw over to the interview with Esport Canada about the news that we've been talking about. And until that time, everybody, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the interview, and we'll see everybody next week. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.
Let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about a little bit about yourself and a little bit how you sort of took the path to be coming a part of Esport Canada.
Of course. Well, I'm a lifelong gamer. I've always played games. I am old enough to have gone through many, many generations of consoles. And it's just always been something that I've really enjoyed doing. But I've also been really involved in lots of other aspects of competition. And something that drew me to esports was that it was this really fun combination of my interests where I had always been really into individual sports. I had done some swimming. I've been a marathon runner, never at a high level, but that's always been kind of my outlet. And so esports is this really cool opportunity to be able to combine some of those interests where I take my love of gaming and my love of competition and be able to put those together. But I am also an educator. So I work in Winnipeg as an instructional support coach. I've been in the classroom for many years and now work with teachers. And originally, I had actually introduced esports as an opportunity for my students to connect and have opportunities to do something at school where I was able to build relationships with them that showed that I was able to honor something that was really important to them and that their interests were of value in that space. And so I had actually started the school-based program back in 2016. And it grew really quickly because at first what was all about relationships, which we know is foundational to a really healthy learning environment, became so much more when I realized how much further I could take that and extend their actual curricular learning through esports. And so one thing led to another, where this small program I started in my school became a provincial school esports association, which prior to the pandemic actually ended up becoming a national organization.
Right.
So Esport Canada was founded as an organization for Canadian educators to bring esports to Canadian students. And through the pandemic, we saw the value and importance of that, because we saw a lot of for-profit American companies that were coming into the Canadian education system and pitching this as an untapped market that they could really capitalize on. And we wanted to make sure that the values, and even further to the conversation we're going to be having, that spirit of the Olympics was kept and maintained in the integrity of the work we had been doing in that space. Fast forward a few years, and we had been approached by a few different places in government, from hospitality and tourism, esports industry, who had been following the work we had been doing in the education space, and asked us to expand into the amateur to professional space. And we took that opportunity to find it as a pathway for our students to be able to continue their passion and to find even more greater avenues for them to extend that learning and that development. And just shortly after those conversations happened, we were also approached by a number of Canadian universities and colleges who asked us to also be the home of post-secondary gaming for varsity competition. And so now we have this incredible group of people, educators, professionals, this incredible cross-section of stakeholders in the Canadian esports ecosystem, all invested in this unifying vision of creating opportunities to support and develop the Canadian esports ecosystem.
Amazing. I mean, so, you know, a lot of the basis from your experience, like you said, and of Esport Canada in general, is the education part of it. It's not just, hey, here's an opportunity for kids to play games at a time when they, you know, would otherwise have their nose in a textbook, so to speak. You know, that's not really, you know, I think there's like a perception about games and esports and all that kind of stuff that is just in, you know, it's still early, it's still very young and everything. So Esport Canada has a lot going for it there, like as you mentioned. So how do you sort of I guess portray something like this to someone who may have questions about, you know, is this really serious? Is this really worth my kid's time? You know, how valuable could this possibly be, you know, for education? Because especially with post-secondary, it costs a lot of money to send your kid to school, or for the kid to have loans and everything. So there's a lot going on there. So how does that messaging go through, and what's sort of the not struggle, but what's sort of the tasks that need to come at play when you are sort of pitching Esport Canada and the seriousness of what this could be going forward for all ages, really, not just post-secondary? Yeah.
Of course. Well, and I think that's where our understanding of learning and the neuroscience behind learning really has taken off and really supported the work that we're doing with esports in schools. Because right now we're in a bit of a paradigm shift where we're seeing so many jobs becoming automated. And what we really want to do is we want to prepare our students with the skills, transferable skills that they need to have jobs that don't even exist today. And so what we're doing with esports in schools is we're allowing them the opportunity to develop those soft skills, to develop something in the education world we consider to be global competencies. So things like communication, collaboration, critical thinking. Games and esports ask our students to make a lot of really quick choices and demand that they develop their problem solving skills in community with others. It's not in isolation. And so that was one of the things that drew me to esports and education at the beginning, was that rather than this stereotype of a kid playing alone at home, that we were giving them a physical community to be part of and to grow with and to learn with. And that was really a pivotal moment for the early stages of development. But now with all of the neuroscience coming out about how esports really does benefit, there's a really cool study that came out actually just in October that benefits cognitive development, that this is helping our students with their learning as well. It is much more than just a game. And I think that right now, a big focus for us in the work that we're doing is building capacity among educators to understand how to approach games in schools to maximize their potential and their benefit for student learning.
Right. And I think, like I mentioned before, it's still, or like, games are still young in general, and then using gaming and experiences that you have through that is young as well, right? So it is a process and everything, but you touch on a lot of advantages of just what sports are in general. I mean, for me, yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't play professional sports. I don't, I don't even play, I don't play professional esports, any of that stuff. But every time I think back to good friends that I have and still have, and what I learned as a person and growing up, a lot of it came from sports, whether it was something that I played at school or whether it was extracurriculars, like hockey and soccer and all that. So that's a big value to what esports can bring in general. And I guess that's that's a key component, right? That's really what we're getting at.
And to build on that, what
Right.
we're seeing from the statistics is that 89%, this is an old statistic, this is from 2020, but 89% of students between the ages of 8 to 17 are gaming regularly. And I would say that by all accounts, I'd say that's actually pretty low estimate. But when we know that it's such a large section of our population, of our young population, that is participating in this form of entertainment, we want to help them transition from just seeing it as entertainment to becoming critical in their interactions with it and thinking about what they are doing in those spaces. But beyond that, it's also this really incredible opportunity that I found for a cross section of our students to interact with each other that normally wouldn't, because you have sports outlets for some of the students that do sports. You have music and theater and arts for those that are interested in that. And then you've got this group of students that typically just go home and play games. We've given them that physical space, but because all of our students are gamers and all of them are participating in this, you're getting all of those students from different interests and different backgrounds working together in the same space and learning how to find commonalities and how to unite their interests through this one avenue. And it's such an incredible thing to witness and to build on.
Yeah. And I find, I mean, personal anecdote for me to tell you is, like, I know that, through the years, as games have become less about sitting on the couch beside your brother, your cousin, your friend, and being online and everything, even, going to college, going to university, and having a certain group of people that I knew were gamers, like I was, like, those were the people that I connected with. It wasn't really about the game. It wasn't really about any of the quote unquote skill that I was using with my fingers and thumbs to play on the computer or with a controller. It was more the development of friendship, the development of connection and everything. And I think that's a key piece. Personally, I think that's a key piece. And what you're touching on in studies and stuff as well is that, and it does go deeper than this, but a personal connection is something that is important. And over the last few years, it is very obvious that a lot of people were yearning for that and needed that in a lot of really valuable ways. So
absolutely,
I want to touch on I want to shift over to talking about this Olympic competition week that's coming up in June. And there's a lot of what Esport Canada and yourself are doing. How does that translate into, like, news like this that's coming up? Is this like are you guys celebrating and thinking, like, yes, this is just another opportunity for us to sort of push forward and be a part of something like this? I know it's not really, the Olympic part of it isn't necessarily like the education, but it is more a sport competition. But I'm assuming that this is, positive news going forward and something that you can sort of build upon from there.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that even with that, the Olympics are still very much part of the education space as well, because that's where they're learning and developing all of those skills and those passions and those interests. And it's that spirit of the Olympics that really drives competition. But the thing that I've always really enjoyed about the Olympics is that not only is it the largest competitive platform globally, it is also this celebration of participation and this celebration of diversity and this striving for excellence, which are all really incredible characteristics. And I think that this announcement allows us to potentially reach even more people by allowing for even more diverse experiences through the Olympics themselves. But it's also a really great way to open the door to future dialogue, not only with the IOC and the Canadian Olympic Committee, because we would love for those conversations to be even more regular in the future, but that it's also an opportunity for us to connect with the general public, because there are still a lot of misconceptions around what esports are even, and the joke about how do you spell esports is definitely something that has come up many, many times. And so this is just another opportunity for us to have those conversations and enter dialogue.
Now, do you think that this is sort of a question that's more about the games themselves, I guess? But there's a small set of games so far that they're working within. There's archery, there's cycling, there's Just Dance, which I think is sort of the more, I guess you could call, traditional game. I think out of the group, or at least the most well known, I would say, to the general population, or more general gamer may recognize that. But there's a lot of different types of games within this small set, but could this just be the starting point? Or do you think, is League going to be something that comes in at some point? Like, is this just the building blocks, I guess?
Well, League of Legends is my sport of choice, so I mean, I'd be all about that. I think that there was a lot of general surprise from the gaming community, especially given the titles that they had featured in the Commonwealth Esports Week last summer. So we saw Dota 2 and Rocket League as titles. So I think most had anticipated those kinds of titles, but regardless of what titles they've offered and the surprise that we may feel, I do still think that this is a stepping stone, and it's a starting point. And I think that it really opens the opportunity for more dialogue about what titles can be included in the future.
Right. And I guess, League as an example, or MOBAs like that, of any kind. Mine, sadly, it was Heroes of the Storm, but it is. Yeah, I mean, it's still running, but as far as playing it,
absolutely,
yeah, it's still there, and it's still installed like 5-6 years later. It's still on my computer.
It's a good game.
It's amazing. It was just my cup of tea. I like the whole, having shared XP as a team instead of individual.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of the item system and some of the others, but anyways, anecdote, off on a tangent. But games like that, where it is very team based, we see multiple competitions worth millions of dollars every year. Now, does that help those potentially be introduced into something like of a larger, competition, like an Olympics, or something that isn't necessarily run by Riot or Valve or anything like that? Like, would that help, or do you think they're going to potentially, it's sort of an opinion question, obviously, but do you think that it's going to be more traditional and more like, oh, it's cycling, oh, it's archery? What do you think?
I think that this is just a starting point, and given the track record of previous titles that have been offered, I think they're still exploring the space. And I think that finding that balance, because I think there's space for lots of different kinds of games, finding that balance is going to happen through dialogue and conversation. It's going to be about opening those doors of communication and allowing multiple voices to be heard, and I think that that's really going to shape the direction of gaming in these kinds of events in the future.
And for sure, you touched on it with previous answers when we first sort of got started here with Esport Canada and yourself. But how do you use news like this, saying like, look, it's recognized to the level of the IOC, it's recognized to the level of Olympics esport. How do you use that going forward for younger generations of saying, this is important, whether someone plays at a really high level and they really, use that as a career or anything like that? How do you use something like this and say, like, look, we need to expand upon this and keep pushing forward, because this is something that can be really valuable in multiple ways, as someone who's even just 10 years old can work on.
Yeah, I think that anytime you attach the Olympic name to any sort of competition, it automatically brings a level of credibility. And I think that at this point, it also adds a layer of curiosity, that people don't really understand what esports are at this point. There is definitely a lot of people who do, which we can see by the incredible viewership numbers that we get from some of the major events. And so I think that there is a large group that do get it, but it allows them to have a conversation with people who are just starting to explore what that means and start to break down some of the misconceptions around what esports are, and start to break down stereotypes as well. Even myself as a gamer often am mislabeled because I don't fit what some people would consider to be the gamer stereotype. And I think that this is a really great opportunity for us to be able to have those conversations.
Okay, so let's talk about yourself again for just a sec here.
Okay.
You mentioned it. I had this question in my head, and I wanted to make sure that I got to it at some point, so we can give everybody a sense of. You mentioned League. You mentioned before. I mean, in a lot of unfortunate ways, not being the stereotypical gamer is not the greatest environment for a lot of people out there, yourself included, probably, unfortunately. But you know, what are your games? What are your go-tos? And what were they growing up? Like, did you start like myself? I have games sitting behind me. These are some of my favorites that I've had over the years.
I noticed.
Yeah, it's
great.
only a couple. It's only a couple. Which is, I don't know. Maybe that's sad. I'm not sure, but which
No, I love it.
are you sort of, you know, League focused now, League of Legends focused now, and sort of started with like all the, you know, typical Nintendo, Sega stuff growing up? What was sort of the path for you, and where are you now?
Well, I mean, I'm old as the hills, so I played like NES and SNES, all of that growing
Is
up.
that considered
So
old now? Because oh no.
So I grew up with all the old consoles and all the classic games. Obviously, growing up, it was less about the esports. It was more about the adventure games, and Donkey Kong Country definitely had a real good grip on me for a long time. But then it was in university that I discovered League of Legends, and that element of competition was really exciting to me. And I think for me in particular, I love strategy. And so those longer games, especially MOBA, where it's very strategy based, and you have to change based on whether you won early phase or lost it, and
Communication,
what do you do in
you know?
mid, right?
Yeah.
And really looking at that big picture and pivoting your approach. I love that kind of stuff. So that's always been my favorite. Since then, I was big into like even the LCS, watching all the professional leagues play, and had my favorite players all the way back to season 2.
Nice.
So I'm pretty OG with that stuff. But more recently, you know what? I've been learning so many games and having so much fun. Last year, we had the opportunity to send a Tekken player to World Esports Championships. So I got to learn all about that game. I personally, my experience with fighting games had always been Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat at the arcade growing up.
Yep, same.
So that was
and not being very good at them, you know?
Oh, exactly. Completely. Yeah. So it was fun to learn a new game and just get even listening to how technical they are in the way that they approach their game, where our player, I was chatting with him before one of the matches, and he was explaining to me how he chooses his next move based on how many frames per second that move has, so that he could tell whether he could get in a couple of jabs before a combo, or whether he's like, and the concept of choosing your next move based on frames per second just brought a whole new level of technical skill
and
to
in the
that
moment too,
game
and in the moment,
right?
Yeah.
Right. It's all real-time decision making, instantaneous. It's absolutely incredible what these folks can do. And now, like, if I just have a couple minutes to spare, I've really been enjoying Pokemon Unite, because it's mobile, cross-platform, 10 minutes. I can, chat with my friends and be like, hey, got 10 minutes?
Yeah. That's it.
It's great. It's so much fun.
You had lots of experience with League. It just reminded me, have you watched Players, the show Players? It is.
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's hilarious. So it
Oh, really?
is
I will
a
take a look at that one.
mockumentary about a team going through the LCS ranks. It is amazing.
Oh my gosh. That sounds great.
If you didn't know it was a mockumentary, you'd think it was real with some.
That's so good.
Because everyone's sort of a little bit exaggerated, everyone's a little bit silly,
Right.
but also somewhat believable at the same time. It's amazing. It was an NBC show, and it was on their streaming service and stuff. It was out
That's awesome.
sometime in the summer. It's hilarious. You know, it's filmed just like you know, any kind of documentary would be, and it's like 6 or 7 episodes, and it's them going and qualifying, and then trying to qualify for LCS, all this stuff, and following every individual team member, and so it's amazing. It's so funny.
Well, then the follow-up question is, did you watch Arcane?
Yes, and it's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah,
that was really good.
And see, for me, that was one of the big things that drew me into League of Legends, is the effort that they put into the artistry of the game. That it's not just a game, it is an entire world that you get to experience immersively and become part of the community. There's the lore, the music, the art, all of it is just so it's such an all-encapsulating experience. It's absolutely breathtaking.
Well, and there's how many characters at this point? You know, I don't play it.
Oh my gosh.
You know, so
many.
There's so much you can dig into, and everyone has their story. Everyone has their connection with another one, or another 5, or another 25 that they're connected to, and everything. So there's so much. I mean, it's been going on for so long now. I guess they can just keep building the roster and doing that. And I think that something like Arcane, I've dabbled in the game here and there. I've probably played a total of like 30 matches ever, which is nothing. But I didn't need to play the game to enjoy it. I think they just did a really good job of world building. It looked amazing, just on its own, regardless of, you know, if nothing was spoken through the entire show, it would just look great. So there was that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think things like that definitely could bring people in too. I know it did for a couple people I know. They're like, oh, I'm going to give this game a shot, even though I've never played a MOBA before. So that's kind of cool and everything. Well, Melissa, I want to say thank you very much for joining me and taking the time. And it's an exciting time. Let's watch this stuff continue to build. Like, I think that's what everybody wants, and the gaming community is looking forward to. So this is big news, and I appreciate you coming on and giving the time to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.